Okay, what we're going to do today is female character design for a graphic novel called Knights of Gaia. I'm going to start with the circle with the head. As you can see, I've sped this up by ×2. So this is 2 times the actual speed. So start with a circle, generally where you want to proportion the head. And if you notice, I tend to rotate the paper so I can get a nice smooth curve. Draw the center line right along the nose, and then sort of just roughly sketch in the jawline. And then, as you'll see, the circle, usually with the character that's dead on, the bottom part of the circle is actually going to be generally where the nose is. And then the eye line is going to be roughly above that. So then I take the jawline and then sketch down, and then start with another ovaloid shape in the general direction where I want the torso to sit. Okay? And if you notice, I'm not sure if you can see it because it's generally a light sketch, right where the collarbone is in the center, I'll draw a circle to sort of place the accuracy of the collarbone, and that gives me the directionality for the shoulders. So from that point, you can draw out just directionally where you want the shoulders to be positioned, and then as you extend those out, you can draw ovaloid shapes to basically be where the deltoids are for the shoulder. And that'll give you a rough proportion of what you need to where the arms sit. And then with women, since this is a female character, what I like to do is draw a line towards the end of those ovaloid shapes across, and that'll give you a rough marker for where you're going to start the breasts. And as you can see, the general proportions are with the top torso is one ovaloid shape, and then you want to position for where the hips are generally another sort of I like to call it a bell shape, where it's going to intersect with the ovaloid shape for where the thorax is, right? So what you do is you extend the line from the top torso down to the crotch, and that'll give you sort of a good general direction of how the torso is going to be positioned. And the arms are pretty simple here. You just extend a line down. Generally speaking, you just have a circle where the elbow is going to be, and the elbow is usually positioned right between where the thorax is and then the lower part of the torso or the hips. So again, with the arm, I'm doing the right arm right now, drawing the circle with the elbow, and of course the top part of the arm, where the humerus is going to be the exact same length as the radius in the ulna, or the forearm, right? So as you draw a circle for the elbow, you want to also draw a circle there for the wrist, and then you can basically draw another, you can use a square or any other shape to generally represent where you want the hand positioned off the wrist. Okay? So just going to sketch this in a little darker here. And then extend it now. Basically, the entire length of the torso, that's going to be the length of the femur or the thigh bone, right? So as you saw, I took those dimensions and then I just roughly with my finger drew the line and then draw a circle where the kneecap is, roughly. Now, as you can see here, after those lines, what I tend to do is actually draw the curves in, right? That way you get the general sense of the curves. You don't necessarily have to draw the entire thigh, like some people use cylinders and so forth. I have a tendency to actually use shapes for the torso and the position, and then instead of just drawing cylinders in immediately, I'll just do a rough skeleton or stick man or stick woman gesture, so I'll get the general direction and movement of the thighs and the limbs. So as you can see right now, I'm doing the left breast. And there are two ways to do this. One is, again, what you basically want to do is find that notch where the armpit is, and then draw a line across the chest. Okay, there's going to be a slight arc there. And then you can, right from there, just do 2 circles, right? Or you can do teardrops. What I have a tendency to do is I'll just do circles, but I make sure that the top of the circle, that is the top of the breast, is right on that line that I draw across the chest, marked towards the armpits. So as I said before, instead of just drawing cylinders for the thighs or the arms automatically, as you can see here, off that line, you can just start to sketch in the overall shape of the limbs, right? Sorry if the way I'm doing this isn't necessarily that methodical, but I don't necessarily draw in a formulaic way. I sort of been doing this for so long that I have a tendency, I still use markers and so forth, but it's faster if there's not a set method, and I can sort of just feel my way through the composition. So as you can see, I'm just darkening the line here to sort of, how do you want to say, fill out the piece. As a general rule, you want to start loose and then do what's called tightening up the composition as you move through it. That is, instead of necessarily just starting from scratch, even if something's a bit flawed, you want to gradually take away the lines that you already have, that you've already marked down, and then take away and add to sort of generally move it in the direction that you want. As you can see, that right breast is a bit small, I believe, in the comparison of the left. So what I'm doing here is I'm erasing both, and then I'm going to extend the lines on either to sort of even out the dimensions. Doing the same thing with the head at the moment, and the chin. And right now the forearm. And as you do this, you can sort of, in your head, see the composition start to come together, and then get a rough idea of where you need to subtract and then where you need to add in order to sort of fill out the mass of your piece. This is where line work is really, really important, and then understanding the graphic nature of the composition when it comes to drawing, right? So as you can see, I only started adding the line thickness after I had the overall composition laid down. That is, it wasn't fully elaborated upon or fully developed, but I had a loose enough architecture to where I can then just sort of add on, right? Now, one thing that I'll suggest is when I was early on in my art career, like when I was a kid, for fun, what I used to do is go to my dad's office, and then I would take old X-Men comics that, hold on, move my microphone. What I used to do is take X-Men comics, I believe that were done by Jim Lee, generally, because I liked his style, and then I would actually photocopy, but drop the resolution. So then, after the photocopy, instead of, they were black and white, of course, you could hardly see the line work. So what I would do was I would actually ink over the work Jim Lee had already done, right? And then that gave me my own sense of composition and everything else. Believe it or not, if you ink stuff that's already there, and you do it in your own style, that will help you as an artist. That'll give you a good sense of what to do with a loose architecture that's already there, right? So generally speaking, my style, at least the style that I'm working with here, it's anime faces, or sort of an anime fusion sort of style in the face generally. And then with the body, just because it's something that I prefer aesthetically, but also something that I'm just more accustomed to. It's more a Western style body architecture as far as comic book characters go. So as you can see, the face is very large in the forehead region and a very tapered chin or jaw, but the body is sort of this character in particular. This is a knight. As you can see, she's got a dagger or a claw, if you will, that's growing out of her arm. They have a very athletic, but also a very curvaceous sort of body type. But as you'll see, the face will be sort of like a general layout of like an anime fusion style. So I don't know how you would characterize this as far as genre goes, but that's generally the style that I prefer to work in. So right here, what we're doing, this is important, is I worked right from those eye line guides that I had. And right from where the nose was, what I did was I loosely sketched in what I would have as the eyebrows. And then that will give you, basically you want to go above the eyebrows to give yourself a general guide to then place in the eyes. Some people do the eyes first. I prefer to usually put in the eyebrows because that will give me, eyebrows are real loose in general. And of course, the eyebrows are going to be denotate, or at least suggest, what emotion your character is going to have, right? So this character has a generally neutral expression on her face. As you can see, the eyebrows aren't really all that expressive. And there's the character sketch that I did that you'll see in the other tutorial. The mouth is rather abbreviated for this character, and then right now I'm sketching in the hair, guided from the character sketch of the head that I did earlier. And as you'll see, the general directionality and hanging of the hair that I'm doing, which is sort of, it's almost straight down, but it'll be whisking a bit to her left. That's there to sort of accentuate the positionality of the head. And as you'll see, there will be a bit of a wisp that'll take place within her hair on the left side of her head. That is, left on her left. To sort of give the suggestion of wind or something that's moving through. Also, when it comes to character design, one thing that's important is you want to do all your writing and stuff up front, and even take some notes, some little bullet points as to, like, what the character is like, what their attitude or personality is like, how that fits into the grander narrative, so on and so forth. And this character in particular, she's one of the few female knights that is actually in a, there are quite a few, I don't want to say few necessarily, but she's in a command position. So when a lot of the knights go into warfare, she'll actually go out and rescue them when they get into trouble, right? So I'm writing something here and I can't quite see what it is. Oh wait, this is towards the end of it, so it's probably around ink time. So see you in the next tutorial.